Very good morning to you on this 9th day of April. It's a bit overcast. We are here in Johannesburg, and if you've joined us, you've reached the fifth connection where we are talking through the storyline of what it means to have stick-to-itiveness, because stick-to-itiveness is what stands. Stick-to-itiveness stands. And in this slice of the story, the 3 verses in chapter 11, going from verse 1 to verse 3, the writer is tracking this idea of why faith is so crucial. It was one of our very own, J.R.R. Tolkien, who said that faithless is he that says farewell when the road darkens. Faithless is he that says farewell when the road darkens. And in line with C.S. Lewis, he says, I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. And so this thing that we struggle to define, we think that a definition that we heard as a child or by a theological guru, that it will stand the test of time. But definitions are demon chaperones. And working definitions are a lot more helpful, because if you are purely given to the propositional, you run the great risk of being captivated and not being able to think widely, because these concepts are huge. Soos hulle sê in Afrikaans, is so wyd soos die Here se genade. That doesn't mean it pales into oblivion because of our not being able to define it. But these definitions and working sentences rise as we grapple with the scriptures in community. And when that happens, it's amazing how we constantly are learning about what faith is. It's not static, it's something that is dynamic. And so this morning we're going to look at how that faith is living with an embodied capacity for continuity of contact with God, for whom we ultimately care. Now, there's a definition for you. Try getting your head around that one. Faith is an embodied capacity for continuity of contact with God, with or for whom we ultimately care. And so the probe, the question behind the paragraph is, what is faith's machinery for endurance? I don't have a better word there. Still grappling for a word to capture it. What is faith's machinery for endurance? And you say, why endurance? Well, throughout the first 10 chapters, he's laying the foundation to show how that Christ is the superordinate one, and then the superordinate walk, and then the superordinate way. And in each of the major sections, he's showing these Christian Hebrews why stick-to-itiveness is so crucial, why endurance is such a key. Enduring in faith. Don't give up on faith. Don't give up believing that God is who he claims to be and that he can carry us. If he can carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, then he surely can carry you and I through the minutiae of our lives. What is faith's machinery for endurance? Don't toss away, don't throw away your confidence, is what we looked at in the previous episode, because we are not of those, verse 39 of 10, of those who shrink back and are destroyed, but of those who have faith and persevere. Perseverance is the hallmark of our election as believers, not election as unsaved people to salvation, but as believers for what God has ultimately saved us for, to be with Him, to be glorified as He is, Christ is glorified, to be conformed to the image of Christ. That's the eschatological determined goal. He chose us for a purpose, and He's going to get us there. But we are not to shrink back. To go back to that verse 35. Do not throw away your confidence, which has a great reward, for you have need of bombing out? No. You have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you have endured, you may receive what is promised. So he starts out in this, what we have called the honor roll of faith. And often some of our descriptors are so misguided. But these are men and women who have shown what endurance looks like in the one who has faith. Faith does not fret, F-R-E-T. Faith is about fidelity, reliability, and trust embodied in the life of a believer. That's what fret stands for. Not Fred, fret. So what's the means of endurance? Well, it is faith. Because of the value of the faith, the writer affirms that men and women in the past received attestation from God, received God's approval in Scripture, and he thus urges his readers to recognize that this standard for preserving faith is worthy of embodiment based upon hope in God's promise. What is promised, you will be able to perform, you will be able to execute. So believe on the promises, believe in the promises. And that's why he's urging the Christian Hebrews not to defect. The recommendation of faith is what is in view in verse 1 and 2. Why? Because faith, verse 1, is the assurance, the hypostasis. That's the word, assurance. It's the word for substance. It's the word translated essence. Faith at its heart. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Faith brings what appears into reality, what is unseen into the real. It's the conviction of things not seen. So what's the essence of faith? Faith is the embodiment of objective reality. Not just throwing around words here. You have to think it through very carefully as it appears in the text. Faith is the embodiment, the assurance of objective reality. And view faith as embodiment, not faith as this ethereal mist that appears and then disappears. And faith is not believing without evidence. This nonsensical, idiotic idea that when somebody says, I have faith, that there is no evidence for that faith. If it's not based on an evidentiary foundation, it is nothing. Faith is the embodiment, the assurance of objective reality of things. What things? The blessings for which we hope. What do we hope for? What comes into our purview, what we see. Faith is not sight. Faith is seeing the unseen. For by it, Watch how the writer shifts now into definition mode. Faith is an embodied capacity for continuity of contact with that which, for that which you ultimately care. What do you ultimately care about and for? It's God. It's an embodied capacity. For by it, verse 2, the people of old received their commendation, their approval from God. That was the acid test. Do they believe what God says? Do we believe that what God says He will do? He has spoken in creation. Creation speaks. Deep communicates with deep. And so right here, the biblical text is the evidentiary base. For by it, people of old received their approval, their attestation that what they believe is real. Verse 3, by faith we understand that the universe was created. What does faith bring into our purview as objective reality? Our understanding that the universe didn't just happen. Matter is not eternal. The materialist is dead wrong. Matter did not happen before God existed. God existed before matter. He brought matter into being. By faith, we understand that the universe was created by the Rhema, the Rhema word. Remember, we have the Logos word, we have the Graphe word, and we have the Rhema word. The Logos word is the incarnate word, who is Jesus. The Graphe word is the written word, which is the biblical text. It's a scripted story that was left for us to study, to have our minds and souls oriented toward reality, toward what is really real. For by faith we understand that the universe was created by the Rhema of God, the active word, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are not visible. God brought them into being out of nothing. Now that is not an idea that you are to read back into Genesis 1. You only discover that as you move further and further into the unfolding story. But all Genesis 1 does, it shows that God brought order out of chaos. Right? He is the active creator. To say that it was ex nihilo is to read something back into Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. It's only as we read further into the text that we discover that. So God's reality is tied to Jesus, because Jesus, according to Hebrews 1, verse 1, 2, and 3, is the exact imprint of the reality of God. And that's really what the term is used to convey in Hebrews 1. Is the objective reality of the outshining and the expression of God. He's of the nature of God. He's of the character of God. And by using this term, hypostasis, in Hebrews 1 and in Hebrews 11, what is the writer doing? He's tying two thoughts together. That Jesus is the expression of the unseen God. The unseen Yahweh, the invisible Yahweh. Throughout the Old Testament, the invisible Yahweh appears as the visible Yahweh in some expression of what is really real. In the burning bush, you have this blurring of the invisible and the visible Yahweh. They are both there. In terms of the angel of the Lord, he rocks up on the scene as a person that Joshua sees and falls to the ground. And his words are, who are you? Have you come to fight for us, or are you fighting for them? What does the visible Yahweh say in the person of the angel of the Lord? I've not come to fight for anyone. I've come to take over because I am God. Now, He's the object of our faith. He's the objective reality. And His name is Jesus. Just let that sink in. God steps out of eternity into time as a human being, as a theanthropic person, both 100% human and 100% divine. And that's the source of our confidence and our assurance. It's not based on our performance as believers. It's based upon who Jesus is. Because our performance can't cut it. From one moment to the next, we move from confidence to doubt, to further confidence and doubt. And all the writer is saying, while that is true, life's like that. Our faith vacillates. We are never to make shipwreck of our faith and toss it to the wind. It's not based upon what we do. It's based upon what He did at the cross of Calvary. That's what shifts our focus, because faith is embodiment. It's embedded inside of reality. It's extended. It's inactive. And that's why what I mentioned here is what coincides even with neuroscience. It backs up the fact that our knowing of reality, our getting to know reality is embodied. It's embodied cognition. It's embedded cognition. It's extended. And we'll talk a lot about this in another episode. But the effect of our faith, we've looked at the embodiment, the essence of a faith is embodiment, right? Then the effect of our faith has to do with that we are creationists. We believe God brought this into being. Now, if you look, you back up a bit into Hebrews 3 and verse number 6, it says, Christ is faithful as a high priest over the house of God. Right? Hebrews 3:6 says, but Christ is faithful over God's house as a son, and we are His house. We are sacred space. That's why we don't go to church. We are church. We are the assembly. We are the entity that is alive. God's reality is not infused into bricks and mortar. It's infused in the lives of people of the way. And if indeed we hold fast our confidence and our boasting in our hope, we are His house. And then further in Hebrews 3 and verse 14, our confidence and our boasting is in this fact that we have come to share in Christ. And if indeed we hold our confidence firm to the end, we go right down to the wire. When we drop, we end up with belief in the risen Lord. That's what it's about. It's about enduring to the end, showing our confidence that we have not reneged, because faith is not a work. What cannot be gained through moral perfection cannot be lost through immoral imperfection. There is no sin that I commit as a believer or can commit as a believer that will separate me from God's enduring love. All I need to do is only trust Him, keep believing, hold on to our confidence. What do you this morning ultimately care about? We care for so many things. What we wear, what we eat, what we drink, where we go, how we get there, who takes note of us. And how does our ultimate care for God show? Well, when you look at this grocery list in chapter 11, you're going to see pictures of men and women who've endured to the end. They were sawn asunder. They were cut in two. They were beheaded. They were burned to death. But they endured all the way down to the wire. What a challenge for us. We live in tough days. And faith is not just for the faint-hearted. It is for those who think they've got it down as well. What's your faith index like this morning? Did you wake up with a high confidence in today I will trust him no matter what? I will stick to him. Trust that you would have a good day as you go with God. Bye-bye for now.